You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
Feel like who art Ed?
Try to slice it.
Who art is Mr. Wood art Ed me?
Good. Either way, it's ambiguous. It works on so many levels.
I know.
That's off to a great start.
Welcome to Who Arted, weekly art history for all ages. I'm your host, Kyle Wood, and today we're looking at Romero Britto. Romero Britto was born on October 6th, 1963 in Recife, Brazil. He grew up in a large family with 8 siblings and very limited financial resources. Because he couldn't afford traditional art supplies like canvas and high-quality papers, his earliest works were painted on just whatever he could find. He frequently used scraps of newspaper and cardboard salvaged from the trash. This helped him develop a resourcefulness and a lack of fear regarding materials. Even today, some of his high-end original works pay homage to those humble beginnings by incorporating newsprint into the background layers. Now, as he grew up, he initially pursued a more traditional career path, even entering law school. I feel like that has come up in more biographies than I would have expected, but he eventually dropped out to travel the world and pursue art full-time. He's entirely self-taught, learning to paint and draw by copying images from books. And he spent time in Europe where he was exposed to the masters of modern art. And this is when he began to develop sort of the artistic vocabulary he's known for today. Britto says that his style is very much a hybrid from 2 of his biggest European influences. He borrowed the fractured geometric perspective from Pablo Picasso's Cubism, which breaks subjects down into angular planes and shows multiple views of the same subject in one composition. And he adopted the bright, saturated color palette of Matisse and the Fauvists. In 1988, Britto moved to Miami, Florida. He settled in Coconut Grove and began selling his art on the streets. His work quickly caught the attention of the local community because of just the bright, optimistic tone which critics and art historians called neopop cubism. His style has bold black outlines, intense, vivid colors, and a whole lot of patterns. In some ways, it feels like it breaks every fashion rule my mom ever told me. We see polka dots next to stripes, and he even turned his signature into a pattern in some of his shapes. But somehow, despite all the clashing colors and patterns, it still kind of works. I think largely because it just seems uninhibited, bright and fun, and relishing breaking all the rules. His major career breakthrough happened a year after he arrived in Miami. In 1989, Britto's work caught the attention of the president of Absolute Vodka. They were looking for an artist to join the high-profile Absolute Art campaign, which had previously featured works by Andy Warhol, Keith Haring, among others. Britto's design was a massive success, and it wasn't just good for the company he's advertising, it was good advertisement for him. His work was exposed to millions of people globally and instantly legitimized him in the serious art world while launching his commercial career. Following that success, Britto built a global brand on a philosophy that art is too important not to share. This belief led him to become arguably one of the most licensed artists in history. You can find his designs not just in the hallowed halls of pristine white galleries, but on Pepsi cans, Mattel toys, luggage, pet accessories, even a custom Bentley. This licensing strategy makes him one of the few artists whose work is as likely to be found in a supermarket as it is in a museum. Some critics will say that this dilutes the artistic integrity, watering down the brand, but Britto views it as democratizing art, making it more accessible to the masses. And after all this commercial success, Britto dipped his toe into some philanthropy. He has served on the boards of multiple charities. He's a longtime supporter of the Best Buddies International, an organization dedicated to ending the social, physical, and economic isolation of people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Over the years, he's donated his time, art, and resources to an estimated 250 charitable organizations, including St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital. Today, he operates out of a massive studio in Miami where he continues to produce work with the aim at spreading joy through art. Now, no episode is complete without looking at a specific work by any artist, so I want to look at Mona Cat, painted in 2004. It's pretty much exactly what it sounds like, a reimagining of Leonardo da Vinci's iconic Mona Lisa, but with a stylized, colorful cat taking the place of Lisa Gherardini. I like this one because it feels like a perfect encapsulation of what Britto's work is all about. He's putting all of that art history knowledge to work in something, but it's made to be accessible to everybody, even if you don't get all the references he's laying down. It's got multiple entry points, and I like that about a work. At first, it's just fun sort of parody, but as you look at it more carefully, you start to pick up on more subtle allusions that he's making. And I think that's kind of cool. Now, as we look at the painting, the subject, the cat, is seated in the same three-quarter pose as the original Mona Lisa, with her paws crossed politely in the lap, mimicking the famous hand placement of Da Vinci's subject. But it doesn't have that sfumato technique, the smoky sort of smudging of the shadows that creates that interesting ambiguity where she seems to be smiling when you see it in peripheral vision, but that smile fades when you move her into your central field of vision. You know, when you focus closely on the mouth, that smile seems to fade. And it's just kind of a weird play of the light and shadow and the way that our eye blends things together. We don't have any of that ambiguity in Britto's work. It is just bright, direct, happy, fun cat sitting in front of us. He's not painting with the subtlety of a Renaissance master. He is adopting that fragmented style of almost a cubist. I mean, it's not quite the cubist style. Picasso and Braque would tend to use much more muted, earthy tones and almost monochromatic looks, but we do see that fragmented geometric shards breaking up the planes. We see almost like an extension of the part from the middle of the head cutting across the face. And, that is just enough to give us that sense of the cubist influence that Britto is bringing into this. But the shards are bright yellows, pinks, oranges. I mean, the cat herself is a bright blue. It's all very saturated, much like Matisse and the Fauvists, who put down these wild colors that were completely unrealistic. There is no blue cat out in the wild, but it's very eye-catching in the art gallery. In the background, Da Vinci had a winding, misty landscape, but Britto gives us flattened patterns, bold stripes, and just sunbeams radiating energy rather than a mysterious landscape. By taking the most famous painting in the world and replacing the subject with a cute animal, Britto is engaging in a long tradition of artistic parody, similar to when Marcel Duchamp drew a mustache on a postcard of the Mona Lisa in 1919. But Duchamp was trying to be subversive and sort of mock the art world. Britto is being more celebratory. He's inviting the viewer to laugh with the art, removing that intimidation factor that often surrounds serious museum pieces. From a technical standpoint, the heavy black outlines defining these fragmented shapes are very similar to cartoons or, I guess, stained glass. And this has a few effects. I mean, first off, when you outline something, it clarifies the image. It brings everything into sharp focus and pulls it forward in the picture plane. It makes it pop off a page and becomes instantly readable. But it also makes it look a little flatter. As I said, it's very cartoonish, unrealistic, but I think that also makes it more approachable. For a lot of people, cartoons and comics are kind of where they first fall in love with visual arts as a kid. So A painting like this is not only referencing well-known and works that are beloved in the traditional Western canon of art history, it's giving every viewer that little bit of nostalgia, that warm feeling of reconnecting with sort of their first artistic loves. Ultimately, Mona Cat represents the best of Romero Britto's artistic philosophy, that art should be a source of joy. He takes a symbol of elite intellectual high art and transforms it into something universally understandable, a funny, colorful cat. And it reminds us that art history doesn't always have to be serious or somber. It can be playful, bright, and even a little bit silly. This concludes this week's episode of Who Arted, part of the Airwave Media Podcast Network. If you found this tolerable, please leave a rating or review on your favorite podcast app. You can find images of the work being discussed this week and every week on social media at Who Arted Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, and of course on the website whoartedpodcast.com. Podcast done.